Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to News Central TV. My name is Mazino Peel. The top stories this hour. Striking doctors challenge FCT Minister Wike, Senate President Akpabio to use local hospitals. The Nigeria Labour Congress threatens nationwide telecoms boycott over 50% tariff hike. Mozambique opposition leader Venancio Lane declines joining new government. Details coming up now. Now let's begin by telling you that striking resident doctors in the Federal Capital Territory have called on FCT Minister Nyesom Wike and Senate President Godswill Akpabio to utilize government hospitals in Abuja to experience the challenges faced by public health workers and patients. The doctors began a 3-day warning strike on Wednesday over unpaid salaries, allowances, and other grievances following the expiration of a 3-week ultimatum issued earlier. President of the Association of Resident Doctors in the FCT, George Ebong, criticized Wike for neglecting the state of healthcare facilities and workers' welfare in Abuja. He noted that while Wike has focused on fixing roads, many health institutions in the nation's capital remain in a deplorable state. So, to discuss this live with us, we are joined by public affairs analyst Jide Ojo. Jide, welcome. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Let's start by asking, what impact does this strike have on public health service, particularly in critical sectors such as emergency care and also maternal health care?
My brother, is very disheartening, very, very unfortunate that FCT Minister and the mandate Secretary for Health will not resolve this issue, industrial disputes, within the time frame of 21 days that was given by the Association of Resident Doctors. It's very, very heart-rending, very heart-wrenching that public hospitals in Abuja have done to us. You know what the implication of even shutting down public hospital for 1 day is very great. Patients will have died. Many will have had to compulsorily take their patients to private hospitals where they will pay huge sums of money. That means access to affordable Medicare will be denied in the next 72 hours while this strike lasts. And I'm really surprised because for those of us living in Abuja, we have seen the yeoman's job that Minister Nyesom Wike is doing in the area of infrastructure, particularly road infrastructure. I wonder why he's just indifferent to the plight of Nigerian resident doctors who have no water, no light, our whole salaries, backlog of 1 to 6 months salary. The state of healthcare services in Abuja and FCT in general has deteriorated to the extent that they can even call upon the minister and the president of Senate and even the president to use public hospital and see how bad things have been. And this is quite symptomatic of the general national state of healthcare delivery in Nigeria, which is a negation of the Sustainable Development Goals. How do we have healthcare delivery for all in a situation where there is no light, no water, and medical personnel are being held backlog of salaries, they are overworked? Some of them are on 48 to 72 hours call, having to cater for thousands of patients who could not afford healthcare delivery in private hospitals and clinics. It's quite deplorable. It is condemnable. It is an act of, it is an human act, because we know the brain drain that have afflicted our healthcare service sector over the decades. And the few who have decided to be patriotic to stay behind are having the short end of the stick.
Okay.
Their training allowance is not being paid. Is it when you are not even paying salary, you want to pay training allowance?
That's a very interesting question.
Well,
Mr. Ojo, could you also explain the role of the Federal Capital Territory Health Ministry in addressing the wage-related concerns raised by the doctors?
Well, I know that there is mandate secretary for FCT because FCT is run like a state. So instead of commissioners, they have what is called mandate secretary. So there's mandate secretary for works, for education, for health, for maybe infrastructure for women. So this mandate secretary acts like a commissioner. And of course, you cannot expect federal government to be paying salaries of state workers because the federal government also have its own health, their own hospitals and clinics that are directly run under federal government here. There's Federal Medical Center in Abuja. There's also the National Hospital. These two, I know, are under the purview of the federal government. Right. And their workers are not part of this strike. But for God's sake, I'm just wondering, it's not for lack of money. I think it's just lack of commitment that will make Barrister Nyesom Wike to close his eyes to the flight of ordinary citizens of Abuja who relied on over 8 general hospitals that are in FCT for their own healthcare delivery. I lost my younger sister at the University College Hospital many years ago because of similar strike. And I can tell you for free that only God knows how many people have died as a result of this strike.
Mr. Ojo.
One day can lead to fatalities.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Ojo, so sorry about your sister. Sad to hear. Well, are there any systemic issues within the healthcare sector that have contributed to the recurrence of delayed wage payments? What could it be?
I wish I were working for government. Unfortunately, I'm not. It's them that can even explain, because from what I read, there have been several meetings, formal and informal meetings between the FCT authorities and these striking workers. Promises have been made that were not fulfilled. Pledges have been made and are flagrantly not implemented. And that's why they resorted to this warning strike of 3 days. So I really don't know what the issues are, because a man who works should receive his pay. I recall last year that this is how teachers in FCT also went on several months of strike because of non-payment of their salaries and allowances. So I don't wonder whether Nyesom Wike wants to be Minister of Infrastructure and not just delivering on health and education, which are very critical sectors of every economy. A nation that, and this is the federal capital for crying out loud. This is federal capital. This should not happen. This should have been avoided, because even when you pay these health workers, these doctors, their wages, it is not comparable to what obtains in senior clients in UK, in US, in Europe, in America. So the few ones who decided to still work here, we are not making it worth their while.
All right.
The other day in Zamfara, in Kankara local government, 2 medical doctors were shot by bandits. Thank God they did not die. One of them was a first-class brain from Ahmadu Bello University. I don't know whether you read about his case. Was shot by bandits in Kankara General Hospital. And that is the state of our healthcare delivery. There is no security. Now their welfare is not being taken care of. So do we blame these doctors when they go on strike? I cannot blame them in good conscience, because the minister collects his own salaries and allowances. Other workers they collect their salaries and allowances and extra quote. Why should the doctor's case be different?
All right,
the
Mr.
doctors
Jide
are now referring to themselves as endangered species.
Yes,
it
Mr.
is
Jide.
So it is very, very disheartening, my brother.
Indeed it is. I wish I could let you continue. I wish I could let you continue, Mr. Jide, but unfortunately we can't continue. But thank you very much for your expert opinion on the matter, and we'll continue to come back to you for more on these kinds of instances.
Mr. President can weigh in into this matter and give a marching order for FCT Minister to resolve this issue without any further delay.
All right. Thank you once again, Mr. Jide Ojo.
My pleasure.
Now in more news, to update on the World Economic Forum in Switzerland, Minister of Foreign Affairs Ambassador Yusuf Tugar has called for Africa's inclusion as a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, with Nigeria positioned as the continent's ideal representative. Speaking at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, during the panel discussion titled Africa's Momentum, Tugar underscored Africa's exclusion from the Council, despite nearly 60% of its resolutions addressing issues affecting the continent. Tugar stressed the need for equitable representation and criticized policies such as the UN Council's deforestation law. He also argued that such policies disproportionately penalizes African countries while ignoring the role of global corporations in driving deforestation. To security matters now, Nigeria's Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Obafemi Awolowo, has described the nation's new counterterrorism and insurgency center as a game changer capable of equipping personnel with the right skills to handle contemporary insecurity challenges. The Army Chief says that the center, which has been set up to enhance the capabilities of cadets and military officials against insecurity threats, is a critical asset in Nigeria's effort to combat insecurity and win the war against insurgency. This was during the inaugurating of the center in Kaduna State, northwest Nigeria, where he says the center will be named after the late Chief of Army Staff, Major General Taoreed Lagbaja.
The transformation the Nigerian Defense Academy is going through is deeply rooted in our resolve to create and manage change.
That village, it's a place where you can paint the right scenarios, scenarios for the cadets, so that they can practice what they're going to face in the field. And particularly, that was named after our late leader, Lieutenant General T. Lagbaja, of blessed memory, who was someone that gave his all to Nigeria. He was very pragmatic, a first-class field officer, so naming that structure after him was quite apt.
The United Kingdom's Minister of State for Defense in the House of Lords has announced increased UK support for Nigeria's counter-terrorism efforts, including advanced training, provision of modern equipment, and intelligence sharing. The minister met with the leadership of the Nigerian Joint Task Force Northeast Operation Hadin Kai, the military operation tasked with combating insurgency in the region. Here in News Central's Umar Kirawa has more on this report.
Maiduguri, the capital of Borno State in northeast Nigeria, is reclaiming its title as the home of peace. However, the use of improvised explosive devices by terrorists remains a significant challenge to resettling rural communities.
The insurgency in the northeast is on the downward trend, and it is a work in progress. We'll continue to do our best to ensure that we achieve our mandate of restoring peace and in the northeast region, and to ensure that socioeconomic activities thrive. That the troops have been doing, and will continue to do that strongly to ensure we achieve our mandate.
The UK minister's visit aims to strengthen long-standing bilateral ties and enhance support for Nigeria's efforts against insurgency.
Our focus is on training. Our focus is on trying to work with more instructors, Nigerian personnel who become instructors themselves, who can then go and work in the country. We want to also ensure that we do as much as we can, as we have done with the gifting of money, but also the expertise that we've made available with respect to tackling IEDs. And let's remember that they're indiscriminate. Not only could they affect the military, but also some of the impacts on the civilians, which, again, none of us would want. So, as I say, there's a very strong relationship between our militaries, and it's something we wish to continue. And that's why our Prime Minister was very keen for me as a Defence Minister to come out here and talk to the General.
British Military Training Assistant Team that have been rendering assistance to the Nigerian military in terms of provision of training and other inter-nation training supports that we have. So their presence here today also reinforces that aspect of the mutual relationship between both countries.
The Nigerian army says the battle to ending insecurity in most parts of the country is continuing, and that strengthened collaboration is critical in this cause to reduce the threats and other insecurity across the country to the barest minimum. In Maiduguri for News Central, Umoru Kirawa.
The Nigerian police force says that over 300 kidnapped victims have been rescued this year, while 100 suspects have been arrested. The police, during a parade of suspects in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, says that it arrested 100 suspects for alleged murder, including several others for armed robbery and rape, since the beginning of the year. Our correspondent, Idang Joseph, has more on this.
Among the items displayed are 61 AK-47 rifles, 4 single-barrel rifles, several rounds of ammunition of various calibers, stamps, assorted drugs, and various forged documents associated with 13 suspects. According to the police, these individuals were arrested for crimes ranging from fraud, armed robbery, criminal conspiracy, and impersonation.
The duo were arrested for the offense of corporate fraud of 300 million naira only. Efforts to recover the stolen funds from the suspects proved futile, as investigation reveals that most of the funds had been diverted to their personal accounts and were used for expensive gambling.
Also arrested is a 4-member gang alleged to be involved in armed robbery, primarily operating in Lagos and Ogun states. Additionally, one Yewu Suleiman, whose gang leader is currently at large and is being accused of kidnapping and armed robbery, including terrorizing the Zaria-Kano highway, was also paraded.
The suspect confessed to being part of a notorious armed robbery gang, known for mostly operating in several communities in Lagos and Ogun states. They further confessed that they majorly steal motorcycles owned by farmers.
The police said that it also arrested Mohammed Kabir, a resident of the Federal Capital Territory in Abuja, and 2 others for impersonation and criminal conspiracy, and another suspect accused of forgery.
So where are their uniforms? Okay. The suspects specialize in buying goods, mostly medical equipment and phones, using fake alerts.
This latest round of arrests and recoveries bring the total number of arrested suspects to 179 for armed robbery, 100 for kidnapping, 152 for murder, 34 for illegal possession of firearms, 77 for rape, and 110 suspected courtists. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idang Joseph.
Now let's go on a break. When we come back, police kill kidnappers of retired AIG's wife and free victim. We'll bring you the details after. And you're welcome back. Now, police operators in Ogun State have killed the kidnappers of Folashade Odumosu, the wife of retired Assistant Inspector General of Police Hakeem Odumosu, rescuing her and recovering the ransom used as bait. Police spokesperson Olumuyiwa Adejobi disclosed this in a statement posted on X on Thursday, saying the Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, was satisfied with the outcome of the rescue mission. Odumosu was abducted last week at the entrance of her residence in Arepo, Ode local government area, Ogun State. Her abductors demanded a 40 million naira ransom. The kidnappers intercepted Mrs. Odumosu's vehicle and took her through a swampy area to an unknown location. The police spokesperson neither gave details of the location where Mrs. Odumosu was rescued nor the ransom amount recovered. The Court of Appeal in Akure, Osun State has upheld the death sentence of prominent hotelier Ramon Adedoyin, who was found guilty of murdering Timothy Adegoke, a former master's student at Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife. The court had reserved its ruling on 29 October 2024, but on Thursday affirmed the earlier judgment by the Osun State High Court, which sentenced Adedoyin to death. In its summary, the appellate court stated that the judgment of the High Court of Osun State stands. Adedoyin's appeal is dismissed in part. The Court of Appeal held that Adedoyin was properly convicted and sentenced to death. And the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has arrested 37 suspected internet fraudsters, commonly referred to as Yahoo Boys, in a sting operation, in Oka, Anambra State. The suspects were apprehended at commissioners' quarters in Ifite following intelligence reports linking them to a fraudulent online activity. During the operation, EFCC officials seized 6 luxury cars, laptops, and mobile phones. The suspects, all male, will be charged in court once investigations are concluded. This crackdown underscores the agency's sustained effort to combat internet fraud in the region. The National Assembly has accused the Ministry of Regional Development of lopsidedness in the implementation of its 2024 budget. Lawmakers say the ministry violated Nigeria's federal character obligations by concentrating over 70% of its developmental projects in Edo State, the home state of the minister. Now, News Central's Idong Joseph has more on this.
The session commenced with the presentation of the 2024 budget performance of the Ministry of Regional Development before lawmakers. The minister informed the lawmakers that a total of 20 billion naira was allocated in 2024. However, only 2 billion naira was provided for regional intervention. He says that the amounts earmarked to address the developmental needs of 5 regional development commissions was inadequate.
By the time we took over, the first assignment I gave to the infrastructural developments to go around to give us details of ongoing projects. But it's quite amazing if I let you know that even projects that had a balance of about 5 billion, 2 billion to complete, by the time they brought proposal, they run into 50 billion.
Some lawmakers raised concerns over details of the 2024 budget performance, alleging that Edo State, the home state of the minister, got the lion's share in the project executed.
If you are from Edo, what is the federal character? What does the federal character say about these budgets, especially as it relates to all the regions that make up the Niger Delta affairs?
Almost about 70% of this budget 2025 is created in Edo State.
1 minute. Cut order, please. Point of order.
Mr. Chairman, the essence of it is that we cannot be here elected by the constituents and speak on this budget.
Following this allegation of bias against the ministry, the committee then resolved into a closed-door session to interface more over the concerns.
There must be equal and proportionate distribution of projects across the various zones.
The creation of the Ministry of Regional Development is a recognition that development must not be restricted to one region alone.
The Ministry of Regional Development, formerly the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs, proposed a sum of 28.9 billion naira, comprising 24 billion naira for capital projects, 2.7 billion naira for personnel costs, and 1.6 billion naira for recurrent expenditures for the 2025 fiscal year. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idong Joseph.
A House of Representatives bill proposing a 5-year non-renewable tenure for Nigeria's Chief Justice and other top judicial officials is drawing mixed reactions. The bill, sponsored by Manu Soro, seeks to amend Section 29 of the Constitution, replacing the current retirement at 70 system. Supporters claim it will boost efficiency, while critics, including lawyers, argue the system is not flawed. Concerns including the potential politicization of appointments and harm to states appointing younger judges. Stakeholders warn that fixed terms could create challenges, particularly with aging judges, advocating the current retirement system for stability and flexibility. The bill remains under review, sparking widespread legal and public debate. And the Nigeria Labour Congress has urged Nigerians to prepare for a nationwide boycott of telecommunications services following the federal government's approval of a 50% tariff increase. NLC President Joe Ajaero condemned the hike, describing it as a grave injustice amidst economic hardship, soaring inflation, and declining purchasing power. He emphasized the strain on workers, saying the average telecoms expenditure could rise to 15% of the minimum wage. Telecoms companies argue that the increase is essential to sustain the industry and improve service delivery. Meanwhile, the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission has urged telecoms providers to prioritize improving service quality. The NLC is demanding an immediate reversal of the tariff hike, warning of mass action to safeguard workers' welfare. Now, since the start of the second term of the 2024-25 academic session in Abia State, more children in Umuahia are staying in school during school hours. This appears to be driven by recent government policy enforced by a task force targeting children found roaming the streets. News Central's Chizoba Ogele, or rather Chinwe Ogele, visited schools and parts of the capital to observe the situation.
It's the second week of the new school term in Abia State, and many children are fully engaged in their schools, enjoying a structured learning environment.
Look, the disengagement of the thermostat is not based on the fluctuation of the current.
As a word of encouragement, those who were here on the fourth day, the school gave them 60 leaves exercise books.
Immediately we resumed, more than 50 learners came on that first day.
The Abia State government is committed to removing all school-age children from the streets by ensuring they are enrolled in public schools. To reinforce this policy, the government has announced the formation of a task force to apprehend children seen hawking or roaming during school hours.
The Abia State Ministry of Education, BASIC, has fully commenced with enforcement of the out-of-school children policy initiative with the appointment of education marshals.
A visit to schools in Umuahia shows both teachers and pupils are eager to kick off the term with renewed enthusiasm for teaching and learning. While free education has been a cornerstone of the government's initiative, stakeholders emphasize the need to create a more conducive learning environment to further encourage enrollment and participation.
I've been thinking on what to do, because as soon as rain comes now, I won't have any place to stay. And there are not enough classes for me to go in and manage, because the classes are very few. It won't contain the children, talk less of me using any of the classes as my office.
School administrators express optimism that the task force might find fewer children on the streets given the visible increase in attendance.
We have more children in the school than we have roaming in the streets. For now, I don't think children roam the streets any longer.
They want to mop up all the out-of-school students. So many of them are coming back to school. So the population is definitely increasing.
However, a closer look at some parts of the city tells a different story, as a handful of school-aged children continue to flout the government's directive, remaining on the streets. In Umuahia for News Central, I am Chinwe Ogele.
Now, South Africa joined the global celebration of the Chinese New Year in grand style as the Chinese embassy hosted a spectacular reception that brought together culture, diplomacy, and dialogue. The event not only marked the start of the Year of the Snake, but also underscored the strengthening ties between South Africa and China. News Central's Chidima Ona has more on this story.
The The Chinese embassy in South Africa hosted a reception in Pretoria to celebrate the Chinese New Year, marking the beginning of the Year of the Snake with a showcase of culture, artistry and diplomacy. The event, which featured performances and displays of Chinese art, served as more than just a cultural showcase. It reflected the deepening ties between China and South Africa.
The Chinese embassy and 3 consulate generals in South Africa will continue to uphold the principle of people-centered diplomacy, stay dedicated to providing better service for our compatriots, and working to create better environment for you to live, work, and study in South Africa.
China is a big developing country and a great partner to South Africa, and therefore we anticipate that they're going to be playing a big role in terms of providing skills of how to go about the work that we're going to do, but most importantly, attracting more investments that are coming to South Africa in order to make sure that we can deliver to our people accordingly.
Guests, including South African government officials, shared their expectations for the growing relationship between South Africa and China, emphasizing shared goals of economic development and cultural exchange.
We are excited. I mean, being invited here is quite an experience, and we are excited about the relationships, and we are so looking forward. And to the minister, as Stella Abraham's point, you know, the relationships are going to grow from strength to strength. And as South Africans, we are also learning a lot from the Chinese community. And I'm sure the Chinese are also interested to see what South Africa has in store for them.
What I like about it is that it's an ancient tradition for them to celebrate the Chinese New Year. Instead of looking at the Western calendar, they've kept their traditions. To us South Africans, in terms of our relationship with China, it's a big deal. I mean, speaking from the perspective of us as an organization, is that we are collaborating with the embassy.
As South Africa and China continue to build on their partnership, events like this serve as a reminder of the shared values and aspirations that unite them. In Lagos, reporting for News Central, I am Chidimma Ona.
Let's go on a break now, but coming up after, Mozambique opposition leader Mondlane rejects role in new government. We have the details after the break. And you're welcome back. Now, Mozambique's opposition leader, Venancio Mondlane, has confirmed that he will not join the new government formed after months of violent unrest over disputed election results. Now, Mondlane, who claims to have won the October presidential election that triggered weeks of protests, said while he is open to helping find solutions, he is not interested in being part of the government. The newly sworn-in president, Daniel Chapo, has pledged to unite the nation following post-election violence that has claimed over 300 lives. However, Mondlane continues to contest the official results, which declared Chapo's victory with 65% of the vote. Mondlane alleges he won 53% and has garnered significant support in his call for electoral justice.
Eu e Daniel Chapo ainda não tivemos nenhum contacto direto. Nunca tivemos nenhum contacto direto. Não tenho problemas em cooperar com o governo. Não integrar o governo, não quero. Eu já disse várias vezes que eu não quero fazer parte do executivo. Já na tomada de posse, as ideias cruciais, as mais fortes que o Daniel Chapo apresentou, são exatamente as ideias que vêm no meu manifesto, são as ideias que eu apresentei durante a campanha e são as ideias que eu venho defendendo nos últimos 2 anos, nos debates televisivos e noutros fóruns. E ele levou 90% dessas ideias e apresentou no programa de governo dele.
Now, a fast-growing wildfire in Los Angeles County has triggered mass evacuations, threatening residential areas already devastated by recent blazes. The huge fire, which ignited on Wednesday morning near Castaic Lake, has rapidly spread to over 9,200 acres, driven by strong winds and dry conditions. According to Los Angeles County Sheriff Robert Luna, around 31,000 people are under mandatory evacuation orders, while another 23,000 are on alert for potential evacuation. The blaze is located just north of the region's two major wildfires, which caused widespread destruction earlier this month. Despite the challenges, Los Angeles County Fire Chief Anthony Marone remains hopeful and has expressed confidence in eventually gaining control over the fire, noting that conditions are more favorable than during the catastrophic fires earlier this month. Now, in the meantime, President Donald Trump has threatened to withhold federal disaster aid for wildfire-stricken Los Angeles unless California leaders revise the state's water management policies. In an interview, Trump reiterated false claims that fish conservation efforts in Northern California are causing water shortages in urban areas. I beg your pardon. Now, he claimed Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom, a political rival for Los Angeles' difficulties in combating deadly wildfires. Newsom has called for partnership and mutual respect to address the crisis. The president's remarks come as he prepares for his first official trip of his second term.
Politically, I think they're dead politically. What they've done, they've destroyed the city. What they've done to that city is unbelievable. The sprinklers, their sprinklers in there like these right here that you see, none of them had any water in them. They didn't have any water. The fire hydrants, 40% of them had no water.
And for this, I'm joined by our international correspondent, Afia Hagen, for a conversation about these fires and Trump's royal reservations. Now, Afia, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Trump gave a wide-ranging interview from the Oval Office. What were the key lines from it, if you'd please?
Yes, he did. He gave a wide-ranging interview to Fox News from the Oval Office yesterday. And one of the things he talked about was President Biden's sort of a veiled threat that perhaps he could investigate Joe Biden for things he did while he was president. He said it was a shame that Joe Biden pardoned everyone else apart from himself, and saying that he, President Trump, went through 4 years of hell, paying millions in legal fees, and saying he shouldn't have had to go through it at all. He also spoke about releasing the FBI records on JFK's assassination. This is something he alluded to last weekend on Sunday when he did his victory rally, that he has documents, or there are documents that exist on JFK's assassination and the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. as well, and he's saying that he could release those documents. He also went on to talk about TikTok and to talk about Chinese interference into the United States, remembering that President Trump was the first person to say there should be a ban on TikTok. That was one of the executive orders he signed in 2020. Now he seems to have changed his mind on that and is wondering, why would the Chinese need to spy on millions of kids that are just doing dances online and watching funny videos online? So basically changing his mind on that and implying that TikTok is no longer a threat to security in the United States.
So he said he's considering withholding aid from California where wildfires are raging. What did he say on this one?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, he was talking about the devastating wildfires that are actually still raging as we speak. He talked about the state's handling of the forest and the water management system, and of course criticizing the governor there, Gavin Newsom, who is a Democratic governor. He said he's going to put I'm going to put a statement out today, but I don't think we should give California anything until they let the water flow down. Now, there has been a water shortage in California, but there's no basis, experts say there's no basis for linking that water shortage to smelt protection efforts. That's the efforts that protect some of the wildlife around that area. But yes, Trump threatening that perhaps California won't get the money and the aid that it so desperately needs at the moment.
So what's the latest from the wildfires now?
So you have two wildfires that have broken out yesterday morning and yesterday evening. One of these is near Lake Castiac. That's been dubbed the Hughes Fire. That's burning out of control at the moment. That's about 40 miles away from the Eaton and the Palisades Fire, which are still burning at the moment as well. And now that fire has burned across 10,000 acres. And there's another fire called the Setbuleda Fire near Interstate 405. That is burning as well at the moment. And it's worth noting that that fire has burnt around 40 acres. It's also worth noting, like I said, that the Eaton and the Palisades fire are still burning, and it's been 2 weeks since those fires started. They are still not fully contained. Another two fires to add to the mix. So the disaster continues actually in Los Angeles. It's far from over. Crews are stretched to the limit and more than at the moment. So more troops should be joining those fire crews in California. And Donald Trump is due to visit the area tomorrow.
Well, I want to say thank you very much, Afia, for the update, and we'll continue to come to you for more. Thank you. Davos, the World Economic Forum happening right now, where Nigerian Vice President Kashim Shettima is part of the panel that will be speaking now, if I'm not mistaken, already doing so. So let's take a look-see at what's happening at the World Economic Forum currently. We're getting information that they have just ended that session, but we'll be bringing you details about everything that happened there. Back to the news now. South Korean investigators have recommended that impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol be charged with insurrection and abuse of power. This follows the conclusion of a 51-day probe by the Corruption Investigation Office into Yoon's ill-fated declaration of martial law on 3rd of December. The CIO handed prosecutors the findings of their investigations, which allege Yoon conspired with his former defense minister and other military commanders to suspend civilian rule and disrupt the constitutional order.
헌법상의 정당한 권한인 비상대권인 계엄 선포를 한 것이 내란죄로 몰려서 여러 가지 어려운 상황을 겪고 있습니다. 대통령이 그리는 계엄과 장관이 그리는 계엄은 다를 수 있습니다. 그리고 장관이 그리는 계엄과 밑에 실제 현장에서 뛰는 사령관, 군인들과 경찰이 또 그리는 계엄이 다릅니다. 그리고 대통령이 장관에게 지시한 사항과 장관이 그 밑에 군인들에게 지시한 사항이 또 다릅니다. 그 과정에서 얼마든지 약간의 의견 차이가 있을 수 있는 겁니다. 끌어내라, 체포해라는 지시가 있었다고 하는데 어디에서도 그런 흔적이 보이지 않습니다. 여러분들도 화면을 다 봤을 겁니다. 생중계되는. 군인들이 거기서 누구를 잡으러 다니거나 누구를 끌어내려고 하거나 누구를 체포하려고 하는.
We're now going to break. We've got more coming your way, including sports after. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now, sports. Defending champion Ariana Sabalenka powered past close friend Paula Badosa 6-4, 6-2 on Thursday to reach her third consecutive Australian Open final. The Belarusian world number one extended her winning streak in Melbourne to 20 matches as she eyed a third consecutive title, a feat last achieved by Martina Hingis in 1999. Sabalenka will face American 19th seed Madison Keys in Saturday's final. Badosa, who upset Coco Gauff to reach her first Grand Slam semi-final, showed fight but was undone by Sabalenka's dominant baseline game in 19 winners. The win also keeps Sabalenka's hopes alive of maintaining her world number one ranking depending on the outcome of the final. And Manchester City have completed the signing of Egypt forward Omar Marmoush from Eintracht of Frankfurt for £59 million. The 25-year-old has put pen to paper on a contract running until June 2029, with potential add-ons taking the deal to £63 million. Marmoush has been in scintillating form this season, scoring 15 goals in just 17 Bundesliga appearances, second only to Harry Kane. The versatile forward expressed his excitement about joining one of the world's top clubs, saying it's an honor for him and his family. City have also bolstered their defense, signing Brazilian defender Victoris for £30 million and Uzbekistan's Abdulkadir Kushnanov for £34 million this January. And that's the news currently. And do remember that you can watch News Central live. Or rather, first off, let's tell you what we brought your way earlier. Nigerian government calls for permanent membership for Africa at the United Nations Security Council. And Nigerian Labour Congress threatens nationwide telecoms boycott over 50% tariff hike. We also told you that Mozambique opposition leader Venancio Mondlane declines joining new government. Now, that's it for the news, and thank you very much for watching. And do remember, you can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and of course on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. My name is Mazino Appeal.